Hello, Pile 2. Welcome to your reading. As I mentioned in the intro, I am filming in a different location than I was when I filmed the intro, so I'm using my big amethyst instead of the little amethyst that we had for the significator choices. So we'll set this aside so I can watch over our reading. My beautiful big amethyst making her film debut. And let's see which Shadowscapes tarot card we have for our indicator card for pile 2. The Star. Wow, look how beautiful that card is. I just love the art on this deck, the Shadowscapes deck. Follow your North Star is the first thing that's coming through. Spirit guides, tap me into pile 2 so we can bring through more messages. Bring through messages from pile 2's higher selves and spirit guides. For where pile 2 needs to be focused right now, where pile 2 can best direct their energy for their own highest good and their own highest timeline right now. We have immunity, number 8 in the frequency tarot. So boundaries are definitely an area for this group to be focused on, and we'll get more clarity, more details shortly here. Immunity and the Star. And then we have surrender in reverse, 58 in the frequency tarot. With that coming out in reverse immediately after the immunity card, which does have to do with boundaries, our immune system helps us and is made up of. It helps us maintain our boundaries and is made up of our boundaries physically, in terms of physical pathogens, invaders in our physical biological system. And we do the same thing energetically and emotionally and with our mind. Keeping our core sense of self rather than allowing our self-concept and our sense of who we are and how we behave and act to be diluted and changed by the people that we interact with. So with the surrender coming out in reverse in conjunction with the immunity and then that message about following your North Star, I'm getting a message immediately about choose who and what you surrender to. Surrendering to the flow of source is very different than surrendering your sense of self to another person or surrendering on a choice that really matters to you. Like, it's very different to kind of go with the flow on something that you and your boundaries truly are workable on, as opposed to going with the flow because you're scared to stand up for what you truly want and to follow your North Star, scared of the consequences of that. I'm being called to pull more of the Shadowscapes tarot. We have the 5 of Cups. This actually came out in pile 1 too. But I'm really feeling this pull, this ebb and flow of an ocean tide of grief. I'm feeling the pull of that. And it not being stagnant, which is a positive thing. Yeah, there's a message with that feeling of when you feel grief arise, when you feel emotions that feel overpowering like an ocean arise, which is funny because of that word ocean, sound-wise, sonically being part of the word emotion. There's a singer, I don't remember who the singer is though, because I haven't actually heard the song, I've just heard of the song. There's a singer who has a song called Emotion where they spell it O-C-E-A-N instead of the way you normally spell emotion. But there's a message, now that I'm done being distracted or going down that rabbit hole, to when grief arises, allow yourself to be carried away with it. Feel the grief, surrender to that flow of emotion. And in that process, allow yourself to be found. Find yourself in that process. Find yourself by allowing your true feelings to sweep over you, sweep through you, engulf you. because a lot of personal truth arises from within those depths. And you allow yourself to become one with those personal truths by allowing yourself to be engulfed by emotions. And with the immunity, allowing yourself to be swept away by your emotions allows that tide to rise and fall, ebb and flow. It allows it to fall away and allows you to understand what truth is left behind. It's not about you getting swept away or consumed by someone else or by external forces or by how emotions affect you in some sort of permanent way. It's not about allowing, for example, allowing like someone else to consume you, or allowing a depressed version of yourself to become the permanent version of yourself. It's about allowing the truths within the grief and depression and other feelings to be integrated into the whole of you. They're part, these oceans are pushing you towards your North Star, not pulling you away, and will actually help show you who and what in your life is also with you on the path that is towards your North Star, and who would actually be pulling you back, holding you back, and you need to set boundaries with. I hope that came through clearly enough. I'm sure you could tell I was struggling with finding the words, but I hope the message ultimately came through clearly enough. Okay. I'm going to read from the Frequency Tarot deck before we pull more cards. So let's start with number 8, immunity. Number 8. 8th house energy could apply to some of you folks. I myself have an 8th house stellium in my birth chart. Some of you might have similar placements. Let's see. If you have drawn this card upright, you are not as vulnerable as you feel. You have stability even if you do not recognize it. Toxic energies will not adhere to you at this time, so do not worry about them. You are protected and exempt from their negative effects. You love yourself enough to do what feels right. You are approving of yourself enough that your self-worth has imbued you with immunity to the things you think could harm you. Believe that what you are doing is right. Know that you are worthy of the life you chose to live. Wow, holy smokes. Believe that what you are doing is right. Know that you are worthy of the life you chose to live. I almost want to read that whole message back again. So what I'm going to do is just put that message on the screen so that you can screenshot it to reread it if you feel so called. If you have drawn this card upright, you are not as vulnerable as you feel. Strong reassurance from your spirit team, your spirit guides, and your higher self at this time. You have stability even if you do not recognize it. You are protected and exempt from the negative effects of toxic energies. You love yourself enough to do what feels right. You are approving of yourself enough that your self-worth has imbued you with immunity to the things you think could harm you. Believe that what you are doing is right. Know that you are worthy of the life you chose to live. I did hear protection and you are protected when I first pulled that card, but I wanted to get clarity about whether the message was a call to protect yourself more or a reassurance that you are protected before I expounded on that. So this is clarified beautifully. I'm feeling a really deep sense of relief and reassurance coming through energetically here. Really deep relief. And this does connect to the message about allowing your emotions to flow really fully in a way that might at first feel threatening or consuming. You are in a safe space in this time and place in your life to do that without it making you vulnerable to other people taking advantage of your emotional state. Allowing yourself to be swept away by your emotions is not going to leave you open to be compromised at this time, and is going to give you the information that you need about your personal truth to continue to do what you know is right, stand in your self-worth, continue to take courses of action that you approve of, make choices that you approve of because you know they're coming from this deep sense of personal truth, this deep well of, I've really felt my feelings and I'm here for myself. I've been here for myself. I am doing what I know to be right. Is the camera focusing on these cards well enough? Let's see if I can adjust that. Okay, I've brought the camera just a little bit closer to the table, and I think that has made the cards a little bit clearer. It certainly looks like it from my monitoring end. So let's continue to get some more information from these cards. Surrender in the Frequency Tarot, number 58. The guidebook says, if you have drawn this card in reverse, you are giving too much of your power away. Relinquishing control in this circumstance will not work because others will prioritize their own wants and needs over yours. They cannot be responsible for you. Unless you make sure that you get what you need and want, you will not be happy with the results. Perhaps you are surrendering because you want to avoid conflict. Perhaps you are surrendering because you do not believe yourself. Whatever the case may be, right now is the time to assert yourself. Prove to yourself that you are worth advocating for. I'm going to say that one more time. Prove to yourself that you are worth advocating for. So to have this come up with the immunity card upright, at first blush seems contradictory, but I'm getting... to me, it is instinctually making sense because the situation that is unraveling, unfolding here, revealing itself through these cards and messages, is a situation where you in general in your life have been on a self-worth journey. This came up for pile 1 too, so if you were drawn to multiple piles, you may want to check that out. You've been on a self-worth journey, you've come a really long way, and you have a foundation that cannot be rocked at this point. Some sort of situation more recently in your life has, you might phrase it as, it's tempted you to revert to patterns that used to keep you safe in terms of just giving in to other people, letting their concept and opinion of you define you, giving into what they thought of you, even if you knew it didn't really match who you truly are. That part about letting other people define you is really huge, and it speaks to both letting other people's opinion of you tell you what you should think of yourself, and their reflections, what they reflect back to you, what they say about you or to you, determine what you should think of yourself and who you should think you are and what you think you are. It also relates to letting other people influence your decisions. And with this group, I feel like that's actually where you draw the line. Like, you've come so far in your self-worth journey that in this situation, the sense that I'm getting is that there was someone with, I'm getting a newer relationship, but I'm not sure about that. For some of you, it might be someone that you've known a long time. But regardless, there's someone that you started to kind of adopt this way of relating to them where you had a little bit of an unhealthy surrender to their worldview, their view of you, their perspective or their view on things in general. And it's very sad to me to feel this when I see it in myself and in others, because it comes from such a genuine place of caring and wanting to understand someone else and be understood. Because this is a pattern that I have long been in recovery from myself, this type of unhealthy surrender. So I relate a lot to this pile. So when I am initially trying to go into someone's perspective and dig deep into it and empathize with it to understand them, it doesn't start off as surrendering to them, and it can feel very sneaky and catch by surprise when it then unfolds into, wait a second, I'm starting to kind of nod along to what they're saying and declaring, even when I don't necessarily agree. I'm starting to kind of compromise in areas where I'd rather not compromise. I want to be able to just state my opinions firmly, but with this person it feels like it would be a fight or a conflict, and so I'm starting to back off and sugarcoat and try to make my opinions and my thoughts and feelings more palatable. I'm starting to put them first in a way that doesn't feel good and like it's furthering the relationship, but feels like it's actually telling myself to take a backseat. So that's where that prove to yourself that you are worth advocating for really comes in. And so with this group, I feel that surrender started to come in, but where the hard line is, that where your hard solid, that's what I mean, solid foundation and hard boundaries are kicking in is when it starts to go you feel yourself on the verge of having your actions and your choices being influenced by this person, situation, workplace, whatever the case may be. For most of you, I'm getting a person, but for some of you, it could be a group of people, like an old friend group, a family group, a portion of your family, a certain group of your siblings or cousins, a certain group of coworkers, a particular boss or management team. Regardless, for some of you, it could even be that old way of being itself. It could be about that more than about the specific person. But regardless, you started to almost get caught in that web. But before you could fully get caught in that web, you noticed that you were on the verge of having your actions or your choices influenced. And you've built a really solid foundation of grounding in your free will and your self-worth. And that caused you to really, it was like, in addition to this ocean of grief about like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this person would do this to me, or I have this immense grief from the old situations where I used to have this unhealthy pattern. Those memories are kicking up to be released, to have that immense overwhelming grief and pain be released. And at the same time as that upwelling of grief and pain, there's also this uprising within you of, no, this fire within you of, I actually am not going to let you define me. I'm certainly not going to let you define or decide what choices I make. And some of you might be dealing with a person who has reflected some positive things about you and some true things about you, but has also maybe reflected not caring about you or not showing you your worth in the way they treat you. They may have told you positive things about yourself, but not followed through with action. And so that sent a message to you of like, wait a second, what am I really worth to this person? Well, I know what I'm worth to myself, and so I'm going to advocate for myself. And some of you, with both of these energies being so strong at this moment in time, some of you may have actually just advocated for yourself, and this message is coming through to reinforce that clarity and that fire for you so that you do not fall into, oh my God, did I really just do that? And allow that surprise at yourself to cause you to spiral into self-doubt. I think that's a really, really strong message from Spirit today. If you have just stood up for yourself in this situation, and perhaps with the Five of Cups you're disappointed in how the other person responded, don't start back talking, or maybe you're with the goldfish in the fishbowl and the staring at that, even though there's this enormous ocean all around, there's a little bit of stagnation and suspense in the Five of Cups energy. So maybe you're waiting for the other person's response to you advocating for yourself. And that might be what's kind of triggering the self-doubt, like, I'm in this suspense. I don't know how they're going to react. Well, now is the time to untangle how they might react from your sense of who you are. How they react does not actually mean anything about you and who you are. How they react, in some cases, how people react does show you a lot about how you are coming off, how your words are impacting people, how your energy is impacting people that you may not have realized before you got a reaction or feedback. And those are things that you can be workable on and adjust. But how people react is not an indication to you of who you are at your core, and that not being worthy or good enough. Even if they never respond, that doesn't mean that their abandonment or ignoring you or neglect is a reflection of you deserving abandonment or being worthless, not being worth a response at all. And that feels almost like a button. That feels like a trigger from childhood for this group, that sense of, if someone doesn't respond to me, that means I'm worth nothing because they couldn't even be bothered to respond to me. So that's huge for this group to recognize, whoa, that's actually not a reflection of me or my worth. And to actually allow, this current situation has probably triggered that feeling of abandonment and the sense of the world crashing in on you that would have caused in childhood. That sense of your sense of self and worth collapsing on you that it would have caused in childhood. And so the message here with all of this oceanic imagery and the different vibrations, the different types of surrender coming through, allow yourself to feel that pain, because now you have a solid sense of self-worth, so you can feel that pain and not be crushed by it this time. When you were a child, the only response, the only recourse that you had, the only way that you knew how to deal with that pain of abandonment or rejection or neglect, whatever it was, someone reflecting you as bad when you didn't do anything bad, or reflecting you as wrong when you didn't do anything wrong. The only recourse you had for that pain was to go, well, the only way I can make sense of this is if it means that I deserved it. And you actually are way too strong to fall for that now. So you can feel the pain and let it wash over you and come out the other side still solid and intact in your sense of self and your worth, your self-esteem, your willingness to advocate for yourself. For some of you, this may actually be one of those particular triggers. You've probably experienced this. If you've been on a self-worth journey, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. There are some triggers that actually cause you to feel, and it's not to give them credit for it, but there are some triggers that your response to them actually causes you to feel more in contact with and in touch with your willingness to advocate for yourself on the other side, both because of what I said before about the emotions giving you information about your truth, what you will and will not stand for, what is and is not okay with you, what hurts you, what helps you, what heals you, what you love, what you don't love, what makes you feel loved, what makes you feel neglected and abandoned, what makes you feel cherished, what makes you feel discarded. There's a big feeling of feeling like someone is treating you as disposable, and that's not okay. It's not okay. It's really not. You don't exist just to be there when someone else needs you or when it's convenient for them. You know what it means to show up for someone and have it not feel like you're going out of your way, even when it is inconvenient for you, because you care enough that you don't think about it as going out of your way. You don't see it that way. And you deserve other people who will treat you with that same integrity, that same care, that same purposefulness, that same intentionality and deliberate care, who will look out for you in that way. I'm being called to pull from the bottom of the deck, upright or upside down. So, okay. The moon. Yes. Definitely let these oceans of emotion bring this truth to you and engulf you in a way that makes you feel really in contact with the truth underlying the emotions. The way that a good cry makes you feel cleansed and clear sometimes, this tidal wave of emotion sucks, but it also, especially afterward, but even while you're going through it, starts to give that sense of, well, the good thing about rock bottom is that it's solid. It gives you this sense of there's something solid to push off of. I know exactly what I'm dealing with here. It may not, and the pain, the emotions, they may not make sense to you. They may not be something you can analyze or put words to or articulate right away. But there's this solidness inside of this inner knowing of, I get it. I get myself now. I'm with myself. I'm feeling my feelings. And it goes beyond words. It's not about making sense in an analytical way of the feelings. It's about having a sense of your presence with yourself and therefore your understanding of yourself. That sense of being in contact with your free will, your ability to own who you are, your ability to say, F it. I know all these people around me may look at me strangely if I speak my truth right now. But the feeling of that truth is so intense that even if I don't understand why it's so intense, I know with immense clarity and understand with immense clarity that the only option for me is to speak my truth. And it causes a sense of freedom in the face of what other people think, and a sense of solidity in the sense of my boundaries are not going to grow mushy because of other people telling me that I should or should not be doing what I'm doing or expressing the way I'm expressing, speaking what I'm speaking the way I'm speaking it. They're telling me to look at the details in this card. What's going on with the details in this card? We have oh, that's what it is. Okay, we have a mask here. Yes. The Moon card in the tarot is all about the unconscious being brought to the light of the conscious mind, the unknown being revealed, the mysterious being revealed. And in this case, Spirit was drawing me. I was about to put the card down, and Spirit was like, no, look closer, look at the details. The mask has come off this figure's face. You are taking a mask off. And you may not have intentionally put it on. You may have needed it to survive. You may not have needed it to survive in this situation, but it's an old habit from situations where you did. You may have simply been uncertain about whether you needed it or could actually trust the person or people involved in this situation. And so you kind of had it in your back pocket in case you needed it. And now it's coming off. You're discovering that actually what you need to protect yourself from the people in this situation is bold authenticity, advocating for yourself boldly, assertively. Doesn't mean being mean. Your actions are a reflection of yourself. Oh my gosh. I was just to finish my thought, I was saying, it's your actions that reflect who you are, not what they think of you. So, speak your truth, even if conditioning to be, a nice girl or a nice guy is telling you that it's too mean. But you don't need to stoop. You don't need to be petty or vindictive or mean in that way. Stop censoring yourself so much. Stop worrying so much about being mean. But if you feel your anger welling up in such a way that you're like, I feel like I'm going to say something I regret, then do absolutely protect your own integrity from that. And I started laughing because I was shuffling the frequency tarot, and in the middle of the deck, somehow it had flipped to face the other way. The Speak from the Heart card was right there. And Speak from the Heart is actually something I use to guide myself when I have something to say that I know I really need to say, and I'm worried about saying it in a way that is unnecessarily hurtful to someone. What I'll use as my North Star, my guiding light in those situations is, what does my heart want to say? Because my heart, I don't know about you guys, but my heart doesn't get off on being mean to people or causing them pain unnecessarily or being vengeful or vindictive. So when I'm like, I know that my truth might hurt this person regardless of whether I'm mean about it or not, and I don't want to sugarcoat it or cushion it or beat around the bush or dance around it, but I also don't want to say it more sharply than I really need to get my point across. So I speak to my heart in those moments to go, what is it that you want to say? What is it that you really need? That's what I ask my heart. What is it that you would say if you had what's the word? I wanted to say the remote, which is fair if the heart had the remote and could change the channel, but I was thinking more about like piloting a plane. If the heart was the one in the cockpit, where would we be going? That's the North Star. That's the North Star that you need, that we all need. If the heart was flying the plane, driving the car, where would it be steering you? And what would it need to say? What would it want to say? That's big guidance. Some of you, like I said, have already advocated for yourself, but some of you are in that moment of like, I know I need to, but what am I going to say? How am I going to say it? And the one with the answer to that is your heart. And do not be afraid to speak from your heart is coming through incredibly strongly. Do not be afraid to speak from your heart. With the immunity card and me being guided to place them right next to each other, you are protected and the situation is coming back through again. Speaking from the heart is not going to cause you... How do I word this? Speaking from the heart involves vulnerability inherently, but it's not the same as opening yourself up to someone else for them to take advantage of. Do you understand what I mean? There's letting someone in terms of letting them in on your truth, which is what this is, but then there's letting someone in terms of letting them influence you. And that is the boundary that you have stumbled on and tripped over and maybe felt like you fell on your face with this relationship with whatever or whomever it is. You have run directly into that boundary, and you know that that's a firm boundary for yourself. You can feel how rock solid it is inside you. And speak from that rock solid gut, heart, truth place with as much softness and firmness as you can manage. You can be open to hearing their perspective. You don't have to be open to their perspective automatically changing yours. You can be open to hearing and understanding their perspective, and if it actually feels good to you, if something clicks, it can shift your perspective. But you can also be open to hearing their perspective and going, I hear you, I'm glad I understand you now. This is still my boundary, this is still my need, this is still how I feel, this is still what I believe. They may not even have been consciously or intentionally trying to convince you to change those things, but if keeping the relationship's status quo would require changing those things, then you're not going to keep the relationship's status quo. And deep down, you already know this, and Spirit is coming through to reassure you that that is the right thing for you. That it's okay to walk away. It's okay to set your boundaries really firmly and try to find a solution where you don't have to walk away first. Try to find a solution where your boundaries are honored first. And if that's not being met, you know what you need to do. Whether it's cutting someone off or simply keeping them at a distance, sort of demoting their place in your life. But don't be scared. There's a feeling, I think a lot of us, have been in situations where something has ended badly with someone, but we're still at the same, workplace or school or volunteer group or whatever it might be with this other individual. And that it's going to be awkward. How are they going to react? How am I going to act around them? You don't need to worry about that. And that's where that sort of F it attitude that came through before with taking off the mask and letting these oceans of emotion inform you and standing really solidly in yourself and speaking your truth. All of this is screw them. It's if you have to be around each other and they've not worked with you to continue a positive, mutually encouraging relationship, well, they're going to have to deal with you. You don't have to feel like you're cowering in a corner and trying to hide from them and trying to diminish yourself and make yourself small and take up less space so as to make things less awkward when you're sharing space with this person in the future. You did nothing wrong. All you did was stand in your truth and stand up for yourself. Advocate for yourself is feeling more accurate than stand up for yourself, because this just doesn't feel like such a fiery, fighty situation. It might be for some of you, but it doesn't feel like this really fiery, fighty situation for most of you. It feels almost calm and still at the same time as there being these enormous, overwhelming waves of grief or pain. So advocate for yourself feels more accurate to me because of that. But yes, you didn't do anything that you need to be ashamed of. So if you are sharing space with this person in the future and it's awkward, let them have to deal with you. Let them be the one that has to deal with you. You don't need to hold back how you would normally behave or how you would like to behave and speak just because they're in the same room and they'll see and they'll hear. It doesn't matter what they think or how they react. You are not in danger in this situation. If this is a truly dangerous situation that you have found yourself in, this may not be your pile. But for this group, it is powerfully true and impactful to realize that you are not actually in a dangerous situation. And that old way of protecting yourself with a mask and by making yourself smaller and making yourself fit in a box, or pretending that you are like this cookie cutter cutout shape of someone else instead of just simply being who you are, that was a way of protecting yourself. And right now, that's actually what's making you unsafe. That's what you've realized by running into this hard boundary of yours. It's like, wait a second. It's the willingness to kind of get swept away that actually puts me at risk here. Being boldly assertive and saying, F it, I'm going to say and act how I speak and act. And if they hear and they don't like it, that's their problem. That's actually what protects you in this phase of your life. You have this sense of integrity and self-worth where you have learned discernment. You're not about to go shouting your news and your business from rooftops to people that you don't actually want to know your business. You have the discernment to not do that. But you don't have to be cringing away and hiding away either. You can be seen now. And in fact, being seen, being heard will protect you now, which is probably pretty mind-blowing based on where this pile has been in life before. I think that's a brand new sensation for it to be like, wait, this is my weapon or my shield now, as opposed to this suit of armor that completely hid everything I am and who I am from the world. Actually taking the armor off is what's going to keep me safe now. It's like if the armor didn't allow an injury that you had to heal, you need to take the armor off. It's that sort of thing. You need to actually be able to spread your wings. And inside this confined armor, they would wither up and die because they aren't able to spread out and be used. They would atrophy. So you actually need to be able to protect yourself by expressing yourself rather than by holding back and hiding. Your voice is a powerful, profound tool and weapon in protecting yourself. And holding back your voice at times when you didn't feel safe was how you protected yourself in the past. No more. The time is over, and that inevitably can be scary. That is scary when you're confronted with conflict in relationships, tidal waves of emotion, a sense of potential abandonment and loss. But same as you're the one that these people have to deal with when they enter the room with you, as opposed to you having to deal with them. You're the shark in the water, not the guppy running away from the shark. You are the one. It's not that the other person has nothing to offer, but they're losing you if they don't act right in this relationship and respect and uphold and protect your boundaries. People who care about you should be protecting your boundaries with you, not poking and prodding at them like it's a fun game. They should want to understand your boundaries so that they can be on your side and be powerful allies and advocates in protecting your boundaries. They shouldn't be wanting to understand your boundaries so that they can identify the best way to manipulate you, to get you to surrender in a toxic way, as opposed to that surrendering to source, surrendering to flow way. So their loss is a big message here. That sense of loss that you may feel, I'm not saying that's not real, of course it is. With these immense triggers coming up, a lot of it is probably from the past, especially if this is a newer relationship where you didn't have so much invested yet. But the loss of the possibilities that new relationships have is a very real loss too. You can grieve the fact that the friendship you thought you were going to have or the relationship you thought you were going to have never got to come to be, even if it was only hopes and not plans. Spending that energy on those hopes is real, even if you hadn't invested anything concrete in plans. So that emotion of loss is real and important, and needs to be felt along with the rest of these tidal waves of emotions. And you are an incredibly valuable person, an incredibly valuable ally. Anyone, like, think about what I just said about you are clearly someone who has done a lot of self-worth work, is interested in other people's perspectives and understanding them. You naturally understand that when you care about someone, you want to advocate for them and be their ally and be willing to throw down for them, be a ride or die. So you know that you are an incredibly valuable ally for someone else to lose. You have really rich thoughts, really rich wisdom and insights and complex, beautiful thoughts that people have probably made you feel like you were too much for before. And that has contributed to this paradigm that you are outgrowing of devaluing those rich, complex thoughts. Feeling apologetic for sending a long text instead of remembering that if you're the type of friend, if you got a long text from someone, you'd be really interested, genuinely, potentially even excited to like dive into their thoughts and feelings with them. And you deserve someone who's going to reciprocate that. And these people, if they don't realize that it's how much they're losing, if they don't step up and become worthy of you, that is their loss. And Spirit's kind of like, they're gonna have to run through that cycle a few more times if they don't get it this time with you. They'll face the same issues with other people until they get it. And the smack, the universal 2x4 will smack harder and harder each time the cycle comes back around until they get it. And the spirit team, the spirit guides are kind of saying that lightheartedly to bring some humor and levity into the situation. It's not laughing about it because there's like this vindictive delight in other people's pain, but there is a sense of vindictive delight in like someone actually recognizing your worth. There's a heck of a lot of grief in them only realizing it after they've already lost you. So there's just validation from spirit of both ends of the spectrum. Feeling the grief, feeling the petty emotions, it's all real, it's all valid, it's all important. Feel it all. Don't get lost in the sauce and stuck on any one thing. That usually happens when you're resisting that one thing. Feeling some vindictive delight doesn't make you a vindictive, vengeful person or a petty person. Feeling it is what allows you to understand it, integrate it, allow the feeling to ebb and flow, and you move on a more whole person as a result, instead of someone who is stuck in not really getting the needs underlying those petty feelings met. By feeling the feelings and understanding them, you're going to be able to meet your needs and not get stuck on any one thing. And that's how you've gone through so much transformation in your self-worth journey already. And that's how you're going to continue to transmute and transform and continue to become a better and better version of yourself, continue to become a brighter, bigger phoenix out of every fire, every set of ashes, no matter how many times you do that. And it's not something to be scared of, this idea that people are going to actually see you getting bigger and brighter and be mad about it. That's not something to be scared of for you at this point in your journey. You can relish it, you can be indifferent to it, you can feel whatever you feel about it, but it's not something to allow to hold you back or to perceive as a threat any longer, because it's not a threat to you anymore, because you have developed these solid foundations, this discernment. And if someone were to come at you with shady energy because they don't like how bright you're shining, you would call that a mile off. And I think the reason that this situation got to you is because they were sending mixed signals in some way. Maybe this person genuinely cared, but really isn't emotionally mature enough to show it. It could be any number of things. And we don't need to get stuck on trying to figure out and dissect the why of every other person's actions. We don't want that to stop you from moving on. But that's just an example that could apply for many of you. And so you may have picked up on their genuine energy and what they do have to offer that is of so much value. But then when they couldn't follow through, like I mentioned before, that example is coming up again. So definitely for some of you, it's that they were saying the right things and their heart was in the right place, but they weren't following through. And no matter whether you understand why they weren't following through or not, there's really only so much of that you can tolerate while respecting yourself. You have to enforce your boundaries, even if you have great compassion for why the other person is not respecting them. And that compassion is not erased by you advocating for yourself very, very firmly and without flexibility. Be workable on the things you can be workable on, but on being respected, having your worth honored, being able to tell that the people who claim they care about you really do care about you. Don't be flexible on those things. No, that's not called for. That's not necessary. That's not the right place to be workable. Be workable in the right places. Be solidly planted and rooted in the right places. That's how trees withstand storms. They're incredibly densely solid and unmoving in the roots, but their branches are flexible and able to bend without breaking. And through these storms that you're going through, you are able to embody that energy. Look how far you've come. We have uniqueness here, number 24 in the Frequency Tarot. I'm feeling a little shock of surprise, a little frisson of surprise there at that coming out. I am so curious. Don't be scared to show your uniqueness. I just got that image again of someone walking into a room and being really scared of how other people are going to react. And the old defense mechanism starting to rise up within you of like, okay, this is when I make myself smaller, right? This is when I energetically, shrink away from the rest of the room and hide within my own skin. And you can feel those defense mechanisms starting to rise. And you kind of take some deep breaths and you let the feelings that are triggered that cause the urges towards those defense mechanisms, you let those feelings rise and flow with those deep breaths. And you step forward with those parts of yourself that are scared, owning your uniqueness, protecting those parts of yourself that are scared, and embodying that effort energy and showing the uniqueness. Because in the past, you may have been bullied as a child. You may have dealt with very abusive or simply emotionally unsafe and unpredictable environments. And it may have been very, very profoundly unsafe for you to let your freak flag fly, for you to show things about you that were different and not in alignment with the people around you, for you to swim upstream, may have caused you to get attacked before. But there's this combination of any attacks that come towards you in this situation, if this is your pile, are not going to be that serious. And you are grown now. You are the shark. You know how to deal with attacks. You know how to look them in the face and say, really? That's what you're going with? What caused you to go with that verbal attack on me? What are you so insecure about that you're compensating for? You know how to fight back now. You know how to advocate for yourself. You have created a safe container for your uniqueness where probably other people should have created that container for you when you were a child and didn't. And that is something you should be immensely, immensely proud of. That's not something that you should feel shame for or feel like you want to hold back or downplay or make smaller. Absolutely not. Because that is an accomplishment that many people spend their whole lives trying to do and never quite make it to. You've made it. Everything else is just icing when it comes to after becoming really solid in your own skin and your own boundaries and who you are, and feeling that sense of freedom and being your own ally and advocate and being comfortable in your skin, everything else is just icing. Seriously. I'm being called to read the message for the uniqueness card in the Frequency Tarot Guidebook to get other messages about this card. This card came up in one of my first readings on this channel. I think maybe the second one I ever posted, if I recall correctly. So you may have been in that group as well, or you may be interested in going back to check that out in the future. Number 24, if you have drawn this card upright, it is time to break the mold. It is often frightening to be authentic and show yourself completely as the unique individual that you are, but it is time to be yourself. This life is not about fitting in and validating other people's choices. It's about choosing what is right for you. You are like a puzzle piece, and each puzzle piece is unique. If you continue to try to mimic those that have come before you, the puzzle will never be complete. Express your unique personality to the world. What do you really like? What do you really want? Every chrysalis must become a butterfly. That part, I heard like ding, 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 game show bells, right answer bells when I read that part about this life is not about fitting in and validating other people's choices. So if your self-worth journey has been anything like mine, you probably felt like you had to adjust who you are, everything about you, how you acted, how you spoke, what you admitted to, what you didn't, what you hid, everything about who you are, in a service of other people's reality, in service of validating other people's reality, their choices, trying fruitlessly, to make other people happy who weren't changing their own lives to make themselves happy. That's a big part of where that unhealthy form of surrender tends to come from, may have come from for you. It definitely did for me. And no more. You've been on this self-worth journey. You've been shedding the layers of that paradigm and that way of being for a long time. And there are some sticky last chunks that are falling off for you. And it's okay to let them go. Don't be scrabbling like, oh my gosh, I'm falling apart. It's okay if it feels like that, with those emotions of overwhelm. Let yourself feel that you are falling apart. Let yourself believe that you are falling apart in those moments of feeling those emotions to their full extent. But know that what's falling apart is the old paradigms, the old ways of being, the old coping and defense mechanisms, the old masks and armors. That what's underneath the masks and armors is more than strong enough to withstand the world now, and so infinitely much more than worthy enough to be accepted by the world. Know that when other people don't accept it, it is a sign of whether or not they are the right people for you at that moment and in that situation, not a sign of your worth. And know that the core of you, your core sense of self, is not falling apart. The sands are shifting under your feet, but you are still here. Your core sense of self is actually becoming stronger and more clearly defined by removing these obscuring shadows and cloaks around it, these obscuring masks and armors around it. And your ability to defend yourself is just going to keep getting stronger. Like this mask and armor defended you before, but as you've started to grow your ability to advocate for yourself, they've started to kind of like weigh you down and keep you from swinging your sword and wielding your shield as adeptly. And you are going to be like, the universe is just really stressing that you are going to be amazed, surprised, shocked, astounded, and proud, I should hope, of how much stronger your ability to speak up for yourself, verbally advocate for yourself, and express yourself on the spot, when you're put on the spot, it's going to get so much better. And I'm not saying that practice is always going to be easy or ever going to be easy, but you're going to be amazed at how good at it you get and how much easier it is without all that armor weighing you down. Still nerve-wracking, but you're going to be unshakable, because you're going to have a sense of this scared part of myself that is quaking with fear about the possible rejection and other consequences in this situation. I'm actually speaking up to protect that part of me. I am with that part of me. I am here for all parts of me. And that's the heart that I am speaking from. I'm not scared to speak up because I know that I am speaking up on behalf of the parts of me that are scared. I'm speaking up for them, as opposed to hiding my voice to hide them and protect them, and in so doing, sending myself the message that I'm not worth advocating for. That was such a huge part of the surrender and immunity card messages. Prove to yourself that you are worth advocating for, and that is going to make you unshakable. Speak your mind even when your voice shakes is a favorite quote of mine. So yes, you may be quaking in your boots, but your core self and sense of self are going to be completely unshakable, because you are going to know from the intensity of the emotion that you allow yourself to feel, that so many people rob themselves of and don't allow themselves to feel because they're trying to protect themselves from it, when those emotions are actually your biggest ally, telling you exactly what you stand for, what your North Star is, what you want in life, what you will tolerate and what you won't. And it's seeing those overwhelmingly painful moments as your allies, showing you the truths that you align with, that you stand for, what your compass is, what your next direction is. Seeing those parts of yourselves as an ally is going to make you an ally to them and make you unshakable in speaking up for yourself. Unshakable is your keyword, pile 2. That is the energy that you are stepping into. That is the energy that you are embodying. And that's what protects your uniqueness and expresses it into the world. It gives you immunity, taps you into discernment about when to speak what and when not to speak what, when to surrender to the flow and when to swim upstream. Abso-freaking-lutely. That's why we have the 5 of Cups in the center with that star, because these tidal waves of emotion, including emotions like disappointment and grief and loss and regret, which the 5 of Cups show, those tidal waves of emotion are meant to lead you to your North Star. They're not meant to drag you down and drown you. And you have grown strong enough to not collapse your sense of self from the fear of them drowning you. You have grown strong enough to not only withstand these tidal waves of emotion, but actually be the master of your own fate, ride the waves like the surfer, or command the waves like the weather magician. Not in the sense that you are the one telling your emotions where to go. You are allowing your emotions to inform you on where to go, and you are a skilled listener and a master at allying with yourself, advocating for yourself, listening to yourself, being there for yourself, being a good friend to yourself, a support to yourself, an encouragement to yourself. By mastering those things, you become a master of bringing the unconscious to the conscious, because you aren't scared of the unconscious that is rising to the conscious through these tidal waves of emotion. You know how to be there for yourself. You know how to parent yourself, like not in this heavy way of like, I am all alone and I have to be my own parent because no one else will be, but in the way of, oh, I see my inner child, I feel my inner child having a tantrum. If this is overwhelming for my inner child, I can feel it and hold the safe space for myself to feel it. And that makes you stronger and more unshakable, more invincible than anyone else can see coming, because they may be used to this quiet version of you, and you may not become the loudest person in the room by unveiling your uniqueness and taking off this mask, because you have discernment. You're going to know when to be loud and when not to be. So no one's going to see this coming, and that may make it more difficult at times, because there's this gravitational pull that people's expectations have, and you have to exert your free will to swim upstream against that. But it's also going to make it incredibly satisfying when you see the looks of surprise on their face and know that it doesn't reflect that you did something wrong, but rather that you did something very, very right. Let's get some final messages for pile 2. I'm being drawn to the Spirit Song Tarot. I just got that. If you've been on my videos before, you might have heard me say this before. Sometimes Spirit or my guides or your higher selves for this collective, whatever form of spirit I'm talking to that day, will wind down a message slowly and gently, and other times it feels like a sudden break in a car. And that's what I just felt at the end of my sentence there. Like, and that's all, folks. Credits are rolling was the message from Spirit. But let's bring through a few closing messages to really allow this message to soak in and unwind and integrate. What can we do? What can we bring through Spirit to help pile 2 with that integration? I'm pulling from the Spirit Song Tarot next. I'm not sure if it's just going to be one card or more. We have the Ten of Feathers, which is the Ten of Swords, and it came out in reverse. Recovery and transformation. With the Ten of Swords in reverse, in this gorgeous art, we have this beautiful serpent, this beautiful snake. With this harkens back to the uniqueness card. Look at this incredible pattern. So there's this sense with the Ten of Swords reversed of you uncoiling and showing your unique colors, your unique scales, the way that you work, instead of trying to work in the way everyone else operates so that they don't notice you and attack you for it. Just letting yourself operate the way you operate, and you're not interfering with anyone else. If it turns some heads, then so be it. Like I said before, F it. This is just such a beautiful feeling. A lot of times, similar to the Three of Swords reversed, in the Rider-Waite Tarot, when the Ten of Swords is reversed, it's like the swords that are on the person's back are falling off. And 10 itself is a number in numerology of completion, the end of a cycle, closing out a cycle, allowing you to start fresh. So with the Ten of Swords in reverse, I'm feeling that you are really shedding the skin, yes, like the snake, shedding the skin, shedding the armor, shedding the mask that used to keep you safe. You are truly at the end of this cycle. For some of you, I'm really relating to and getting the sense that with how long your self-worth journey has been, you're frustrated. You're like, hasn't this cycle ended like 1,000,000 times already? Haven't I phoenixed 1,000 times already? What do you mean I have to shed my skin again? But you're already doing it. You're already doing it, pile 2. And you're doing an amazing job. Recovery and transformation. You're already doing it. Shedding the skin, shedding the armor, letting the new shiny skin show, knowing that that shiny new skin is whole and hale and healthy and gonna protect you just fine. There's no chinks in the armor. It feels fresh and new in a way that might feel a little bit scary, like a baby's skin, but it's actually incredibly strong and durable. Because you've come to a realization that very few people come to in this version of humanity that we have landed in at the moment. Very few people come to the realization that it's actually so much stronger to have these strong, what's the word? Durable scales. Not the word I was looking for, but good enough. These strong, durable scales on this flexible body of the snake. That adaptability, that flexibility, that's not weakness. The solid suit of armor is not only is it not the only type of strength, it's not the strongest type of strength. It's incredibly brittle. It can be tipped over, it can be smashed, it can actually hurt the person inside more if it's hit the right way than they would have been hurt by the same blow if they hadn't been wearing it. Because it can get smashed into them and become a second weapon. It can be used against them. This being comfortable in your own skin thing is so huge for you, because this skin, this willingness to express yourself and use your voice is such a stronger form of strength than hiding away in the shell of armor and conforming and putting on a mask that you think looks like what people are expecting of you. I'm going to read the Ten of Swords reversed meaning in the Spirit Song Tarot Guidebook. The Ten of Feathers, the snake. I'm going to read the upright message first so that we can understand the animal messaging that this artist intended for this card. A master of spiritual renewal, Snake slides through changes with minimal effort as he sheds negativity and transmutes it into something self-empowering. In releasing destructive energies, Snake transforms from a lower vibration to a higher one. Snake will assist you through a metamorphosis and will help you regain your focus in the process. Oh my gosh, the way this is confirming everything that's come before in the reading is just so beautiful. Regaining your focus with the North Star from the Star card. The fact of this crappy situation with this person or situation not having the most regard for your boundaries being something that you have the capacity, you have the fire to transmute that and to transmute yourself. You're not at the mercy of it. Yes, that energy goes along with what I said before about you're the one who's being lost by the other person more than you are losing them. You're the one who's walking into the room and influencing the energies. Own that impact instead of shrinking away and waiting to be influenced by everyone else and letting them have control of the room. You're there just as much as they are. You have just as much influence and control on the vibration of the room as anyone else. And you deserve that. It's not wrong for you to own it and to use that. It's not wrong for you to use it on purpose. Use it with discernment. With great power comes great responsibility. To not use things for evil. But if this is your pile, you know that already because you've been on this self-worth journey and you know what the consequences are if someone messes around with karma and you're not interested in that. You aren't a petty vindictive person if this is your pile. And it's okay to feel, like I said, it's okay to feel those feelings of wishing someone would understand the way you're hurting, even if it means they hurt that way themselves, that sort of thing. That doesn't make you a petty vindictive person. And you are not one because you don't take those actions. Anyway, shedding negativity, shedding the skin, shedding the people that do not serve. By casting away old ways of thinking that hold you back, your upward spiral will begin. The swords represent the element of air in the tarot, which corresponds to thought. So this old ways of thinking, these old paradigms and worldviews are really pointed at by the Ten of Swords. Your upward spiral will begin by casting away old ways of thinking that hold you back. Your reality depends on your perspective. Let yourself surrender to change, and you'll discover that a revival within has begun. Your reality depends on your perspective. Your reality is your reality. You do not need anyone else to validate it for you to own it and for it to be worth owning and protecting and defending. And you do not need to erode yourself or allow yourself to be eroded by other people's reality and the ways it contradicts yours. You get to enforce your boundaries by speaking, this is my reality. It's okay if yours is different, but this is mine, and that's not actually up for debate. That's not actually something I'm going to negotiate right now. Take charge of your perspective and your reality. Keywords: recovery, transformation, rising above, time to move on, mental exhaustion, new hope. That image of the tree being rooted just came back to me as I was saying that about reality. You deserve to be rooted in your reality and never feel like you have to uproot that or poke at the roots or torture them to try to make them root into someone else's reality. When I was speaking before about what it is to care about someone and be a good friend and understand their perspective, when that is done by both parties in a relationship, you get to merge realities, have them converge like the overlapping circles of a Venn diagram, as opposed to one person taking over the other or dominating the other in this covert way by influencing their reality without allowing their reality to be influenced. Instead of red taking over blue or blue taking over red, you end up with a purple overlap where you both get to meet without actually needing to change or erode or corrode who you are to be seen and understood and to see and understand them. And with the journey you've been on, you may not have experienced much of that mutuality in life. So this is Spirit coming through to say, that is real, that is possible. Don't settle for less. Don't settle for relationships where you're expected to titrate who you really are, dilute who you really are to make it more palatable for the other person, to make your reality conform to theirs. You shouldn't be making other people conform to your reality, and they shouldn't be making you conform to theirs. There should be this natural Venn diagram overlap of wanting to understand each other's reality and participate in each other's reality rather than quash each other's reality. That's respecting each other's truth, respecting each other's voice and boundaries, and becoming an advocate who will uphold them with the other person rather than becoming a threat to someone that you claim to care about. So the reverse message from this guidebook for the Ten of Feathers is, the worst is behind you. Learn from the outcome of a situation and take careful consideration before taking action. Keywords for the reversed card: escape, release, refocus, learning from the past. So yes, feel all the feelings from this situation that you are either transforming by speaking up and giving the other person the opportunity to participate in your reality with you instead of domineering and overriding your reality. You're either transmuting it that way, or you're transmuting your reality by walking away from this situation. Or there's a little bit of both, where you're giving the other person the opportunity, and based on how they respond, you'll continue to work with them, or you'll walk away. So the worst is behind you, because the worst is betraying that sense of self-betrayal, betraying yourself, keeping yourself trapped and confined in a claustrophobic mask or suit of armor. The worst is behind you because you have set yourself free. And kudos for that. You deserve to feel a sense of big props and be recognized for that. So know that I am recognizing you, know that your spirit team is recognizing you, because that is a huge mountain that you have climbed to the top of and already started coming down the other side of, like, no sweat. Even though you know it was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, you're still like, wow, I can't believe that. Like, you're so, the feeling coming through is like, you're so excited that it was actually possible, that it feels now like huge relief, no sweat, even though I know all the blood, sweat, and tears that went into this, no sweat, because I can't believe that was actually possible. I'm so excited it was actually possible. And you deserve to be excited about being yourself. You deserve people around you who are excited about you being yourself. Not this like fake support. It's like, yeah, I'm cheering for you, but it's all actually, it feels very lukewarm. And maybe I'm giving you some sort of snide suggestions undercover. You deserve people who are excited about your uniqueness, who love your uniqueness, who cheerlead you without having to be asked, because it genuinely excites enthusiasm in them, genuinely incites enthusiasm in them. You know how it feels when you like someone so much that it just makes you happy to be around them and you just want to tell them that. You deserve people who feel that way about you. You deserve relationships where that's mutual, where it's not like, oh gosh, this feels creepy because this person is excited about me and I don't really know them. And also where it's not the other way around, where you're like, oh my gosh, I want to get to know this person, but they're acting pretty lukewarm towards me. People shouldn't be reluctant to be your friends or to be in your life or to work with you. They should be excited to work with you and to experience all the gifts that you have to offer and to share their gifts with you and see what new colors come to light when they mix their red with your blue. It's funny, just earlier today I just saw a snippet of an interview with Billie Eilish and Phineas, where the interviewer was asking them, I was scrolling through YouTube looking for something specific, and the algorithm of course showed me a few shorts, and I do click on a few that are interesting to me. It's about the extent of my social media usage these days. And what's interesting to me sometimes surprises me. I looked at that interview and I was like, I want to know what they're talking about. And the interviewer was asking the two of them what makes it possible for them to have such a close, functional working relationship while being siblings, because some people love working with family, some people can't stand working with family and would never be able to do so in a functional, healthy way. And Phineas said that he thinks of chemistry as like pouring two different colors into a bottle and seeing what new color comes about. And Billie Eilish was clearly like very excited to like hear that from her brother. She was like, yes, you're describing it so well. and they were saying that they have that chemistry of pouring their two different colors into the bottles of their creative work and seeing what new colors come out of that. But what I was seeing in the interview was that not only do they have the chemistry of cool new colors coming about, they're both excited to see what happens when the two of their energies combine. And actually, Phineas said something specific about, he used the word worldview. He said the way her worldview influences mine. And you want and deserve people in your life whose worldview is influenced by yours the same way yours is influenced by theirs, without it being just one, like I said, one person overriding the other or having no room for the other's worldview. It's not about trying to dominate or covertly manipulate each other's worldview, potentially subconsciously, and having no idea what they're doing and being completely in denial of it. It's not about those games. It's about, I'm excited to unpackage these paints with you and see how they mix together. Your worldview is interesting to me, and I'm curious about it because I want to find out if something about it will make something about the world clearer to me or more meaningful to me and change my worldview in that way. I want your insights. This is the energy that we want to be mutual in our relationships, and you deserve that. And with that, pile 2, remember that your emotions are showing you your boundaries and your North Star, and allow yourself to feel all the feelings that you're feeling, and allow your uniqueness and your truth and what you want to say from your heart to unfold. Allow the messages that your unconsciousness has you to unfold from those waves of emotion. Surrender to the flow of your own energy and your own truth, rather than surrendering to others that you may have capitulated to in the past, surrendering to the pressure to seek approval or conform to the opinions and expectations of others. And let your North Star of what you truly want, what your true purpose is, shine and glow from within those waves and become no longer obscured by the noise of other people, and follow it ruthlessly and relentlessly with great mercy and compassion for yourself and those around you, especially for your tender heart. But do not compromise in pursuing your North Star or enforcing your boundaries. Be adaptable like the branches of a tree, but also be completely unshakable and uncompromising like the roots of the tree. Because there are things that you can be in flow with, and things that you need and deserve and really, really need to not compromise on, including your North Star, which your emotions and your boundaries are pointing to. Your heart is pointing to that for you. So you don't need to try to identify and pursue your North Star. Ride the waves of emotion that you're on. Follow the instincts and instructions that the information from those emotions gives you. Speak and express accordingly. Advocate for yourself accordingly. And let your passions, what you're enthusiastic about, your emotions, what you want in life and in relationships lead you very naturally to that North Star as a result. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a great week.